Well, the courts have decided on this Lia Thomas situation. They said no sir, no ma'am, no anything in between. Not by the hairs of your chinny chin chin. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. Before we get started, I just want to ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to leave a comment but you don't know what to comment, just leave a knife, because you know the trans activists are going to come for my neck. Okay, so I just wanted to take a second to talk about this story because it's late breaking. The court has decided it. It's a done deal.
And just like that,
Michael Phelps' kid sister no longer has a chance of being in the Summer Olympics in Paris. And I predict that more and more of this is going to start to happen. And it really is, because this is a situation where somebody is being very unfair with females that are in a sport that they claim to love and refusing to understand that there are reasons besides just your physicality that you should go ahead and sit it out. 100%. Here's the deal, you guys. If we're really supposed to be allies, which is what I have been for pretty much my entire adult life. I've had trans friends for the last 30 years. That is not a secret. But if we're really supposed to be allies and elders of the
2S LGBTQ
community, then we do have to be honest and say, look, this is why things are not going your way, transgender people of today. This is the reason that certain people are not sympathetic to your plight, will not be sympathetic to your plight, and the reason that you're even losing support from your own community, which, yes, sometimes I hate to admit it, but unfortunately we are part of the same community. And I do feel like it is my duty as an elder and a longtime ally to let you know that you're really messing this up by trying to be spoiled brats, and you could take this opportunity to create your own lane. But that's not the deal here. What happens is people like Lia Thomas start off as unremarkable men and transition to exceptional women in sport, and then have to be reminded that they're not genetic female, and that's the reason they're blowing all the other competition out of the water. Pun intended and pun not intended. But the competition is being blown out of the water when this big bitch jumps in. And so I'll go ahead and go over the story with you guys just so everybody knows the details, because I do feel like there are important parts of what's going on here. And so here we go. Transgender swimmer Lia Thomas loses shot at making Paris Olympics after failed legal battle. Thomas argued that the policy which prohibits her from competing in the elite events should be considered invalid and unlawful. Transgender swimmer Lia Thomas was unsuccessful in her attempts to overturn a World Aquatics policy barring her from competing in elite swimming events, according to multiple reports. In the ruling released on Wednesday, June 12th, and obtained by USA Today Sports and The Guardian, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, CAS, dismissed the 25-year-old swimmer's request for an appeal of the rule set in place in 2022. The CAS panel said that Thomas, who became the first transgender athlete to win an NCAA D1, she was really putting the D in D1, huh, ladies? All right, I'll stop. D1 championship in any sport in 2022 is ineligible to compete in elite competitions hosted by World Aquatics of USA Swimming, barring her from competing in the U.S. Olympic swimming trials or the Summer Olympics. Side note really quick, does it ever occur to Lia Thomas that maybe with the way things have been going when using transgender people as your spokespeople or the LGBT cause as a flag that you wave has not translated to actual dollars and cents and has actually had the opposite effect on a lot of what it is that they've hired trans people to represent? I don't mean to beat a dead horse. I don't mean to beat a dead horse face, but Dylan Mulvaney and Bud Light is the one that most of us think of. Target just recently had to put the kibosh on their Pride merch because they also were getting backlash. So when you're not good for the brand, and you have to realize that the Olympics, they're a business. They're a huge business. That's why it's such a huge deal when people have Olympic Village in their city, in their town, in their state, in their country, because it brings a lot of money in, a lot of tourism. So I don't know why, if you claim to love the sport so much, that you wouldn't understand that by sitting it out, you might actually be helping the sport you claim to love. Because the Olympics and TV in general aren't even that popular anymore. Hardly anybody watches that kind of stuff. And yeah, worldwide, they still have a good audience, but numbers are down. And, these numbers do sound impressive, but you have to worry about every viewer. And we all know the way that it takes over your TV. I haven't had regular TV in a long time, but I do remember when the Olympics would come on, it would just be around the clock. But here's the stats on that in case anybody didn't know. The 2020 Olympic Summer Games in Tokyo, which actually took place in 2021, had a global audience of approximately 3.05 billion, down from 3.2 billion 5 years earlier. Those numbers do matter. I know billion is impressive, but when we're talking about worldwide television, how many countries are not at all supportive of LGBT rights? How many countries don't necessarily think males belong in female sports? So when you consider those factors, how can you not understand that this is a business decision? And like I just said, if you really do love the sport the way that you claim to love the sport, you'd be more worried about the sport moving forward than you are about your own career. And I don't mean to be demeaning when I put career in quotes, but I don't feel like Lia is being the most considerate of the actual careers of the actual women that could possibly be hindered by her participation. But let's go on. According to The Guardian, swimming's governing body introduced a rule prohibiting athletes who have undergone any part of male puberty from competing in the female category. The federation instead added an open category that would allow transgender athletes to compete. Thomas argued that the rule should be made invalid and unlawful, claiming the policy contradicts the World Aquatics Constitution per The Guardian. And see, if they're offering you an opportunity to still compete, and this is about you loving a particular sport, then why would you not take that opportunity to compete in the open category, and then you could possibly be the first transgender person in the new open category that they specifically designed for transgender people? To me, that's being groundbreaking, and I'm not even being sarcastic. I really am saying, to me, that's being groundbreaking. You being able to say, look, I literally created this lane, and now transgender people moving forward can compete against other transgender people. We have our own situation. And I would imagine that even if people watch for the wrong reasons, people will watch. And so you could get a lot of eyes on you that you otherwise wouldn't get, and you could show other young LGBT people what it looks like to actually compromise and the benefits that could possibly come with that. But if you still want to go the victim route on it, you can write a book about how segregated you felt. You can possibly option the movie for there's a lot that you can do, Lia. But instead, you just want to take advantage of the fact that you are setting records in women's swimming. But when it came to men's, in 2018-2019 season, she was then competing in the men's team, ranked 554th in the 200 freestyle, 65th in the 500 freestyle, and 32nd in the 1650 freestyle. I think that kind of shows right there what you're really concerned with, is that you were smoking the girls, but as a man, you weren't really that exceptional. You were probably not ever gonna be a real contender in anything like the Olympics as a male. But then you saw you could break records in women's, and you were like, yeah, I definitely want to continue to do this. Why should I ever have to compete against another transgender person? That might make it too close to even, and then people might see through my facade. And sorry I get a little upset with this, but I'm just tired of some of these LGBT people that absolutely refuse to compromise with society and don't understand that that's how a lot of us from generations before were able to make change and get things done, was by small compromises here and there. And yeah, when you're a male that otherwise wouldn't have had the opportunities that you have now competing against the women, I think you should be happy that you've gotten the recognition that you've actually been able to get. I think you should also be thankful that there was that window where you were able to see what it was like to be truly exceptional at something. And now it's time for you to accept that moment has passed and try competing with other transgender people. Let's see how that works out. According to both outlets, the panel determined that Thomas did not have standing to challenge the policy and that the rule will remain like her, intact. Okay, they didn't put the like her part in. I put the like her part. But it was good, right? Let me get it together. But yeah, the rule will remain intact. So, sorry, Lia, but you don't get to be the groundbreaking bitch you thought you were going to be there. World Aquatics said that they are dedicated to fostering an environment that promotes fairness, respect, and equal opportunities for athletes of all genders, according to USA Today. Our policies and practices are continuously evaluated to ensure they align with these core values, which led to the introduction of our open category. We remain committed to working collaboratively with all stakeholders to uphold the principles of inclusivity in aquatic sports and remain confident that our gender inclusion policy represents a fair approach, the Federation said per the outlet. It really does sound fair to me. If you're both pretty much on the same hormones, you're both pretty much going through the same thing, that should allow for a pretty even matchup. Who knows? Maybe in the future people are willing to reevaluate. Maybe in the future people will see it more your way. But for now, why not just do what you have to do to get what you want, which is on the cover of a Wheaties box? I mean, it worked for Caitlyn all those years ago. World Aquatics called the decision a major step forward in our efforts to protect women's sports, the outlet reported. And that's the thing right there. Most of us do believe that women's sports do need to be protected, and women should be able to have that to themselves. There's no trans men trying to bust in on men's sports. I wonder why that would be. Thomas began hormone replacement therapy in May 2019, forcing her to adjust to her changing body as she began the process of switching to the women's team, she said in a 2022 Sports Illustrated interview. After taking a gap year due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on collegiate athletics, Thomas joined the University of Pennsylvania's women's team practices in late summer 2021. So after COVID, she came back a new woman. In February 2022, 16 members of the team wrote an anonymous open letter expressing their belief Thomas should not be allowed to compete. In response, more than 300 NCAA, Team USA, and global swimmers and divers signed a letter supporting Thomas and her inclusion on the women's team, SI reported. They probably were all the male athletes. Just making life hard for the girls. In 2022, Pennsylvania introduced HB 972, also known as the Save Women's Sports Act, which called for students to play on a team consistent with the sex they were assigned at birth, which is what I've been telling you guys all along. That's the way to go at it, is just, this isn't women's sports, this is female sports. That isn't men's sports, that's male sports. No arguing with what the sex you were assigned at birth is. But let me go on with their story. Thomas spoke about the impact of such legislation with Penn today. One of my big concerns for trans people is feeling alone, said Thomas. Even if you don't pay attention to the news about states proposing and passing vicious anti-trans legislation, it can feel very lonely and overwhelming. Welcome to being a human being, Lia. Because I don't know if you know this, but straight people, gay people, trans people, normal people, we all go through feelings of being alone every once in a while. Some people to different degrees, some people almost not at all. But most people do deal with all the stuff that trans people act like is so specific to them. And that's a part of why a lot of us don't really care about the stories anymore. Because a lot of the stuff you guys describe, like, do you think that trans people are the only people that have ever considered unaliving themselves? I mean, people unalive themselves every day. And I'm not going to go into the stats on that and how straight men are a really at-risk category for that. I'm not going to talk about the fact that our veterans who served the country and actually have, I would say, a bit more trauma than a person that's decided that they're going to live their life a particular way. And I'm not saying being trans is a choice, but I am saying you choosing to actually live as what you consider your authentic self is definitely a choice. So I will use the word choosing to live a particular way. So stop acting like the rest of us are supposed to go on some guilt trip every time you guys try to emotionally blackmail the entire country into thinking that now we are responsible for the way that you feel about yourself when it comes down to it. Lia goes on, I am a woman just like anybody else on the team. No, you're not, Lia. We wouldn't be having this conversation. Don't try to gaslight us. That's one thing I do not respect. When trans people try to act like, I'm a woman like anybody else. No, you're not. Or you wouldn't have had to transition. There is a difference between you and a genetic female. I'm a woman just like anybody else on the team, added Thomas in her interview with SI. I've always viewed myself as just a swimmer. It's what I've done for so long. It's what I love. I get into the water every day and do my best. Okay, well, do your best in the open category. category. Nobody's stopping you from getting in the water. Nobody's stopping you from doing your best. Do your best in the open category. Show us all how great that can be and how great you can be in it, and stop complaining about everything else. Nobody wants to hear it, especially not in Pride Month. It's Pride Month. It's time to be proud of what and who we are. And yes, you can be a woman, but you're a trans woman. Stop making women regret the fact that they ever shared the title of woman with trans women. Because if you don't remember, there was a sweet spot for a minute there where real women were like, welcome, welcome, come in. We are glad to have you. There were a lot of women that were like that. And then it turned into this where Dylan Mulvaney started telling women how to be women. And then you started trying to show women what women's sports were about. And that's when women got like, no, I'm done with this. So now I would say that the main thing for the trans community to remember is you made your bed, lie in it. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. As always, this has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.